Let's talk about categories and tags in WordPress. Now, I don't want to overthink this too much. In fact, you've already worked with them a little bit if you've been following along when we set up our portfolio section. With our portfolio, we had categories as well, but they were a little bit different. They were, let's see here, we had adverts, applications, branding, graphic design, photography, and web design. So these are all just simply categories. So it's probably easier to look at it and think of it this way. When I click on these different categories, whatever that project is filters into that category. So we're going to do the same thing with our blog, but we're going to take it one step further. So here we've got categories, but we could also add tags. So something that I want to point out, when I first started to research this, because to be totally honest, categories and tags is not something that I've used a lot in my past because I'm not a big blogger yet. However, I'm starting to be as I create more of these tutorials for you. But in the meantime, I had to actually look it up because I wanted to make sure that I was teaching you correctly. So I found this great article, and something that I thought was really interesting that I wanted to point out is that blog posts should clearly fit into a single category. So again, your category, your main parent thing that you're going to sort this into. So it shouldn't fit into multiple. And the example that this author gives is, remember playing with those blocks as a kid that you had to put them through the hole, whether it was a square or a circle. His point is that if it's a square, it's not going to fit in a round hole unless maybe you bang on it with a hammer. So what he's saying is that, like, as a main category, your post should only fit into one of those. Now, you might have a red square and a blue square and a yellow square, and all of those would be tags. So for me, that made a lot more sense. Also, his example is, say you're a breakfast blogger and you've got a food blogger, and you've got breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And then within those, you could have tags of, let me scroll down, bacon, quinoa, or vegetarian. So I hope that makes sense. Let's go ahead and apply that to our own blog. So what I'm going to do is jump back into my dashboard, and you'll see I've added a couple more posts since the last lecture just so we had something to work with. I'll go to my dashboard, and then I can come down to posts. And when I hover over posts, you'll notice we've got categories and tags. So let's start with categories. As a designer, I might add something like tutorials. We'll go ahead and add that. And when I do that, remember it automatically adds a slug, just like it did in the previous lecture where we talked about adding categories for our portfolio. And when you do this, I would take the time to add a description. For right now, I'm not, simply to kind of move through this tutorial more quickly, but again, for search engine optimization and just as a good practice, I would take the time to set up your description. Let me add a couple more categories real quick. Let's add freelancing, maybe business, and let's just call that good for now. And I'm going to jump back up to my main posts area, and we've got those 4 posts that I just added, and right now they all have the uncategorized category. Let me go ahead and edit these. Now, just because in that article he mentioned that we should keep it to one category, and I agree, you can still apply to as many as you want. So WordPress doesn't physically limit you from adding more. It's just good practice. So let's go ahead and add just one category here. We'll call it tutorials. And then what I can do is add a tag. So right here, let's just add another tag called web design. So maybe this is a web design tutorial post. I'll click on add, and that'll add that to this. And this print design one was already added from something else I was doing as I was gearing up for this lecture, so that's why that's already in there. I'm going to go ahead and click update up here. And now when I view my post, depending on your theme, you might not see anything different. And this is something we can explore more in your settings, but sometimes you'll see below maybe the name of the author. You'll see, in this case, I've got the date, but sometimes it'll add the actual categories and tags as well. As I scroll down, you'll see we've got my post. And then on the sidebar, and this is just in the Salient theme, and currently this is set up with widgets, we have our tutorials category and uncategorized because that's what's been applied to this one specifically. If I jump back to my main blog page and I scroll down, you'll notice that I still only have these 2 categories, and the reason why is because those are the only 2 that exist on my site right now. Even though we've already made categories, they aren't actually applied to any posts yet. So let's go back and take care of that real quick. I'll jump down into posts, and you'll see, again, we've only got one category. We've got basically our tutorials category, and then we've got these other default uncategorized. So rather than clicking all the way into the page, I'm just going to do a quick edit. I'll click on that. I'm going to uncheck uncategorized, and we'll add business to this one. I'll hit update. We'll go down to this and hit quick edit. Let's make this one freelancing. We'll update that. And last, let's make this hello world. Let's see, we've got tutorials, business, freelancing. Actually, let's just leave this one uncategorized, and I'll click update. Now when I go back to view my posts, and I scroll all the way down on the sidebar, you'll see we've got the different categories. And if I click on any one of these, it'll filter it just like it does on our portfolio. And then depending on how you have your blog set up, you can have your tags featured as well. So right now by default, they're not showing up, but let me show you something real quick while we're in here. I'm going to jump over to my appearance and go down to widgets. So right now my blog sidebar that we're looking at is controlled by all of these widgets right here. And what I can do is come down, and I have this tag cloud widget that I'm going to drag in. Let's put it right below categories. I'll hit save. And now when I jump back to that blog and I go to my sidebar and scroll down, you can see that the tags that I've used so far show up. So if I click on that web design tag, any posts that have that web design category will show up. So hopefully that helps clear up what a category and what a tag is in WordPress and how to use them. In the next lecture, we're going to take a look at how to set up comments in WordPress, or how to disable them, because most likely you're not ready for comments yet, and that way you can avoid getting spammed.